What if I told you there are 20 vegetables you can plant once and they'll replant themselves forever? Sounds impossible, but it's absolutely true. Today, we're counting down 20 incredible self-seeding vegetables that will keep your garden producing year after year without you ever buying another seed or seedling. If you're tired of spending hundreds of dollars every spring at the garden center, or if bending and replanting every season is getting harder, this list will change everything. Number 7 on our countdown is sitting in your spice rack right now, and most gardeners throw it away when it could be saving them $30 a year. But here's what the nurseries don't want you to know. They're banking on you not discovering these self-perpetuating plants that could make you almost completely independent from their yearly sales cycle. Stick around because this countdown might just revolutionize how you think about gardening forever. Before we dive into our countdown, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss money-saving gardening secrets that can transform your garden into a self-sustaining paradise. Your support helps this channel grow. Coming in at number 20, we have corn salad, and before you picture kernels on a cob, this little beauty is actually a leafy green that goes by several names. You might know it as mâché or lamb's lettuce. It forms these perfect little rosettes of tender, mild leaves that look almost like tiny lettuce heads. What makes corn salad special is that it absolutely loves cool weather, which means it's ready to harvest when most other greens have given up for the season. Here's where the magic happens for your budget. If you're buying seed packets every year, you're spending maybe $3 to $5 each season. But here's what I discovered after letting just a few plants go to seed. They come back on their own, year after year. Over 5 years, that's $15 to $25 you keep in your pocket instead of handing over to the seed company. Plus, there's no more back-breaking work of preparing soil and sowing tiny seeds every fall. The secret is timing your planting just right. Sow your corn salad once in late summer or early fall, then here's the key part. Let some of those plants bolt and flower instead of harvesting every single leaf. Those flowers will drop seeds naturally, and next season you'll have volunteers popping up without any effort from you. Just thin out the extras to give the remaining plants room to grow. This works beautifully in shallow containers or raised beds, which is perfect if bending down is getting harder on your knees and back. Now, if you live in a very hot climate where temperatures stay scorching well into fall, those seeds might not set properly. In that case, you'll want to treat corn salad as an annual and enjoy it for the season you have it. Have you ever found little rosettes popping up unexpectedly in a bed you didn't sow? That could be corn salad volunteering. Have a look next season and see if you recognize one. Just make sure those volunteers aren't sprouting in areas where grandchildren play or pets wander, since they might get trampled or confused with other plants. At number 19, we're talking about arugula, that wonderfully peppery salad green that adds such a nice kick to your dinner plate. Now, arugula has this fantastic habit of bolting to seed pretty quickly, especially when the weather warms up. Most gardeners see this as a problem, but I'm here to tell you it's actually your ticket to a self-sustaining salad garden. This is perfect for what I like to call the lazy gardener approach, though there's nothing lazy about being smart with your time and money. Arugula will give you fresh, peppery leaves with almost no fuss once you understand how it works. Those grocery store bags of arugula can really add up. If you're buying a 4-ounce bag every couple weeks at around $4 each, you're looking at $8 a month just for this one green. Over a full year, that's nearly $100. Here's where arugula becomes your budget hero. A self-seeding bed can give you 8 to 10 harvests throughout the year, potentially saving you $30 to $40 annually without any replanting effort on your part. You simply sow it once, or better yet, let your existing plants go to seed instead of pulling them up in frustration. When those seedlings start appearing, just thin them out to give the stronger ones room to grow, then harvest the baby leaves as they come. Arugula is incredibly container-friendly, which makes it perfect for patio gardening or if you're working with limited space. It actually appreciates some partial shade, especially during hot summer months, which means you can tuck it into spots that might not work for sun-loving plants. If you find the flavor getting too strong when the plants start to bolt, simply harvest the leaves earlier in their growth cycle, or provide a bit more shade. When was the last time you pulled up a salad green because it got too gone to seed? What if you let it go and watched for next year's crop instead? Just keep an eye on where those volunteers pop up, making sure stray seedlings aren't sprouting in walkways, or they might create a tripping hazard for grandchildren or anyone with mobility challenges. Number 18 brings us to lettuce, specifically the loose leaf and romaine types that have this wonderful ability to bolt and drop their own seeds for next season. Now, when I talk about grocery bills that really sting, lettuce is often one of the biggest culprits. You're looking at $2 to $3 per head. And if you're like most families, you go through quite a bit of it. Let me paint you a picture of what this means for your wallet. Suppose you buy lettuce every week for $2.50. Over 50 weeks, that's $125 a year just for lettuce. Now imagine if self-sowing gave you even half that number of harvests. You'd save around $60 annually. Over 3 years, that's nearly $180 staying right in your pocket where it belongs. The secret is patience and timing. After you harvest your main crop of lettuce, resist the urge to pull up every single plant. Let some of those heads bolt and go to seed. You can either collect those seeds for controlled planting or simply let them drop naturally around your garden bed. When the new seedlings emerge, thin them out so the remaining plants have room to develop properly. This works beautifully in containers or narrow raised beds, making it perfect for anyone who needs easy access without a lot of bending and reaching. A simple 18-inch deep container can support several lettuce plants through their entire cycle from seedling to seed production. If you live in a very hot summer climate where lettuce bolts almost immediately, you'll want to focus on cool season growing and aim for fall or early spring self-seeding instead of trying to push through the heat. Could you designate a small corner of your raised bed just for lettuce volunteers next year and let nature take over? Just keep those volunteer seedlings away from areas where pets might chew on shredded leaves after harvest, and pull excess seedlings to prevent them from becoming a tripping hazard in walkways. At number 17, we have cilantro, which is also known as coriander when we're talking about the seeds. This is the herb that people either absolutely love or can't stand. There's rarely any middle ground. If you're in the love camp, you know how frustrating it can be to spend $3 to $4 on a bunch at the store, only to watch it wilt and turn to mush in your refrigerator before you can use it all. Here's where cilantro becomes a real budget hero for herb lovers. This plant has a reputation for bolting quickly in heat, and most gardeners see that as a problem. But what if I told you that's actually your secret weapon for never buying cilantro again? When you let cilantro go to seed, you're getting double value. Fresh leaves early in the season and coriander seeds later on. Let's talk numbers that matter to your household budget. If you buy cilantro 10 times a year at $3 each, that's $30 annually. Self-sown cilantro plants can provide fresh herbs for 3 to 4 months or more, potentially saving you $15 to $20 each year. Over 5 years, that's nearly $100 you keep instead of handing over to the grocery store. The process is beautifully simple. Sow your cilantro once, or if you already have plants, let your last batch flower instead of pulling them up in frustration. Those flowers will develop into seed heads that you can harvest for cooking. That's your coriander spice right there. Let some seeds drop naturally, and next season you'll have volunteers sprouting up. Just thin them out to give the survivors room to grow. Cilantro works wonderfully in containers and patio pots, which makes it perfect for apartment dwellers or anyone with limited garden space. In very hot climates where the herb bolts almost immediately, treat it as a fall or spring crop when temperatures are more moderate. Have you ever pulled cilantro because it went to seed? What if you let it go and watched for new sprouts next year instead? Just keep in mind that some children or pets may taste the strong flavor and find it unpleasant. So position your cilantro in accessible spots that aren't right in play areas. Number 16 takes us to dill, that tall, feathery herb that brings such wonderful flavor to everything from pickles to fish dishes to fresh salads. Dill has this fantastic ability to set seed readily, and once you understand how to work with its natural tendencies, you'll never need to buy another dill plant again. This is perfect for anyone who loves that distinct dill flavor but gets frustrated spending money on fresh herbs that seem to disappear from the grocery store shelves just when you need them most. Those little bunches of fresh dill can cost you $2 to $3 each, and if you're someone who uses it regularly for canning, cooking, or seasoning, those purchases add up quickly throughout the growing season. Here's where dill becomes your reliable garden companion. Self-sown dill plants will essentially take over the job of replanting for you, potentially saving you $10 to $15 every year. That might not sound like a fortune, but over time it adds up, and more importantly, you'll always have dill available right when you need it most. The process couldn't be simpler. Sow your dill in early spring. Then here's the key part. Let those flower heads go to seed instead of cutting every single one for immediate use. Those seeds will drop naturally, and next year you'll have volunteers sprouting up without any effort from you. Just thin out the extras to give the remaining plants room to develop their full, feathery growth. Dill works beautifully in containers if you're gardening on a patio or have limited space. A deep pot will accommodate its taproot and give you that classic, tall, graceful appearance that makes dill such an attractive addition to any garden setup. If you don't use large amounts of dill regularly, you might prefer focusing on other self-seeding herbs, but even occasional volunteers give you free seasoning when you least expect it. What's your favorite use of dill? Pickles, fish seasoning, or fresh leaves in salads? How would it feel to have a volunteer plant show up without you having to hand seed it? Just keep an eye on those tall seed heads as they mature. They can attract birds and insects, and dropping seeds might create slippery spots on walkways. At number 15, we have one of my absolute favorites, volunteer cherry tomatoes. These are the surprise gifts that every gardener dreams about. You know the ones I'm talking about, those little tomato plants that pop up in your compost pile, beside your shrubs, or in the most unexpected corners of your garden, giving you free fruit when you weren't even planning on it. That's what I call the gardener's jackpot. Here's what makes this so exciting for your budget. A 6-pack of cherry tomato seedlings at the garden center typically costs around $12. Now, self-seeded volunteers cost you virtually nothing except the joy of discovering them. If you can avoid buying just 1 or 2 packs each year because volunteers are doing the work for you, over 5 years you're looking at saving around $60. But honestly, the real reward is that sense of partnership with nature when a plant decides to make your garden its home. The secret is letting a few of your ripest cherry tomatoes drop and decompose naturally where they fall. Those seeds will overwinter and surprise you the following spring. When you spot little volunteer seedlings, resist the urge to immediately pull them up. If they're sprouting in odd places, carefully transplant them to better spots while they're still small. Once established, treat them like any other tomato plant. Provide support with cages or stakes if you have the space and energy. Cherry tomatoes work wonderfully in containers, so even if you're gardening on a patio, an 18-inch deep pot can support a productive plant through the entire season. If you live in a short growing season area like Zone 4, volunteers might sprout too late to actually produce fruit before frost hits. In that case, treat volunteers as a pleasant bonus, but keep some planned seedlings as your main crop. Have you ever found a little tomato plant where you didn't plant one? Did you keep it, pull it, or ignore it? What if next time you expected one and made space for it? Just remember that large tomato vines can create tripping hazards or hide pests, so keep clear pathways, especially around seeding areas where grandchildren might be playing. Coming in at number 14, we have basil going to seed. And this one is for everyone who loves fresh pesto, caprese salads, and that incredible scent of basil leaves warming in the summer sun. Most gardeners panic when they see their basil starting to flower, rushing to pinch off every bloom to keep the leaves tender. But what if I told you those flowers could be your ticket to never buying basil plants again? This tender annual herb has a wonderful secret. When you allow those flowers to develop and drop their seeds, you're setting yourself up for next year's herb garden without spending another dime. Think about how much you typically spend on basil plants. If you buy them several times throughout the growing season at $5 each, and you purchase maybe 3 plants a year, that's $15 annually. Over time, that adds up, Plus, there's all the time spent shopping and replanting. Here's how to make basil work for you long term. Let a few of your healthiest plants flower completely instead of pinching every bloom. Those flowers will develop into tiny black seeds that you can either collect for controlled planting or let drop naturally around your containers. Next spring, sow those seeds in containers or directly in your garden bed. For anyone dealing with mobility challenges, a 12-inch pot positioned at waist height makes harvesting and care much easier on your back and knees. Now, if you live in colder climates below Zone 9, basil won't survive winter outdoors, so you'll need to rely on seed saving and starting plants indoors, or try overwintering a container plant inside near a sunny window. Basil works beautifully in containers and is perfect for patio gardening, giving you that fresh herb taste right outside your kitchen door. What would it feel like to harvest basil in May without buying a new plant because one grew itself in a pot you prepared last year? Just keep an eye on where those volunteers appear. Make sure they're not sprouting in areas where pets frequently walk or where patio furniture might block their growth and your access to harvest. At number 13, we're talking about mustard greens, those fast-growing, leafy members of the mustard family that can absolutely transform your approach to fresh, healthy eating. This one's for the frugal gardener who wants leafy greens that bounce back year after year without all the constant replanting and fussing. These plants set seed quickly and will happily self-sow in mild climates, giving you nutritious food for you and your loved ones without breaking the budget. Let's talk about what mustard greens can do for your grocery spending. If you're buying a bunch of fresh mustard greens every few weeks at $3 to $4 each, you're looking at spending quite a bit over the course of a growing season. A self-seeded patch can provide multiple harvests throughout the year, potentially saving you $20 to $30 annually. That might not sound like a fortune, but it adds up over time, and you'll always have fresh greens available when you want them. The process is beautifully straightforward. Sow your mustard greens initially, then here's the key. Let a few plants bolt and go to seed instead of harvesting every single leaf. You can either collect those seeds for controlled planting or simply let them drop naturally around your garden area. When volunteers start appearing, just trim them back to encourage tender new growth and thin out any overcrowded spots. Mustard greens work wonderfully in containers or raised beds, making them perfect for anyone who's downsized their living space or prefers apartment gardening. They're also excellent companions for other self-seeding plants since they don't take up much room and grow quickly. In very hot summer weather, the leaves can become tough or bitter, so you might want to focus on early spring and fall, growing when temperatures are more moderate. Have you ever wondered if that stray green popping up in your garden bed was a mustard volunteer? Could you leave it next season and see what develops? Just keep in mind that some mustard greens can pack more spicy heat than you might expect. If grandchildren are helping in the garden and might pick leaves to taste, they could get quite a surprise that makes them cough. Number 12 brings us to Swiss chard, and this is one of those vegetables that just keeps on giving once you understand how it works. Swiss chard is actually a biennial, which means it grows leaves the first year and goes to seed the second year. But here's what makes it special for busy gardeners. Those colorful stems and nutritious leaves will keep producing for months. And when it finally does go to seed, it drops enough for next season's crop. This is perfect for anyone who wants reliable, nutritious greens without the constant expense of buying fresh vegetables at the store. Swiss chard typically costs $3 to $4 a bunch at the grocery store, and those bunches don't last very long once you get them home. If you're buying chard regularly throughout the growing season, maybe once every 2 weeks for 8 months, you're looking at spending around $50 to $60 a year just on this one vegetable. Here's where Swiss chard becomes your budget champion. A self-seeding patch can provide fresh leaves for picking throughout most of the growing season. Plus, it'll reseed itself for next year. That could easily save you $30 to $40 annually, and you'll always have fresh, pesticide-free greens right at your fingertips. The secret is patience with the timing. In your first year, harvest the outer leaves regularly, but let the plant establish strong roots. In the second year, continue harvesting early in the season. Then let some plants bolt and go to seed. Those seeds will drop and give you volunteers the following spring. Swiss chard works beautifully in containers. A deep 18-inch pot can support several plants and makes harvesting much easier on your back. In very hot climates, chard might bolt earlier than expected, so provide some afternoon shade to extend your harvest period. Have you ever noticed how expensive those colorful chard bunches are at the farmer's market? What if you could walk out to your own container and cut exactly what you need for dinner? Just be aware that the seed heads can get quite tall and might interfere with shorter plants nearby, so give them room to develop properly. At number 11, we have spinach, and this is one that surprises a lot of people because most gardeners think of spinach as something you have to replant constantly. But here's the secret. If you let some of your spinach plants bolt and go to seed instead of pulling them up in frustration, you'll have volunteers showing up exactly when you need them most. This is perfect for anyone who loves fresh, iron-rich greens but gets tired of the constant expense and replanting cycle. Those bags of fresh spinach at the grocery store can really add up, especially if you're trying to eat healthy and include more leafy greens in your family's diet. A typical bag costs around $3 to $4. And if you're buying one every week or two throughout the growing season, you're looking at spending $70 to $80 a year just on spinach. Here's where spinach becomes your reliable garden partner. Self-seeding spinach can provide multiple harvests throughout the cool seasons, potentially saving you $40 to $50 annually. But the real benefit is having fresh, tender leaves available whenever you want them, without those emergency trips to the store or disappointment when the spinach section is picked over. The timing is crucial with spinach. Plant your initial crop in early spring or fall when temperatures are cool. When some plants start to bolt, and they will when the weather warms up, resist the urge to pull them all out. Let a few go to seed completely. Those seeds will drop and give you volunteers during the next cool season. Spinach works beautifully in containers, and a wide, shallow pot makes it easy to harvest without bending over too much. In very hot summer climates, spinach will bolt almost immediately, so focus on fall and early spring growing for the best leaf quality and seed production. Have you ever wondered why that leafy green keeps popping up in the same corner of your garden bed every spring? It might be spinach volunteers trying to help you out. Just keep an eye on where they sprout. You'll want to thin overcrowded areas and make sure they're not competing with your planned plantings for space and nutrients. Breaking into our top 10 at number 10, we have radishes, and this might surprise you because most people think of radishes as those quick little roots you pull up and eat fresh. But here's what many gardeners don't realize. If you let some of your radishes stay in the ground and go to seed, you'll have volunteers popping up for seasons to come, and those seed pods are actually quite tasty too. This is perfect for anyone who loves that peppery crunch in salads but wants to skip the constant replanting cycle. Radish seeds at the store might only cost a few dollars, but here's where the real savings come in: time and energy. Instead of preparing soil and sowing new seeds every few weeks for succession planting, your radishes do the work themselves. A packet of radish seeds typically costs around $3 and gives you one planting. If you normally do succession plantings every 2 weeks throughout the growing season, you might buy 3 or 4 packets a year. That's $12 to $15 annually. Self-seeding radishes can give you multiple flushes throughout the cool seasons without any additional seed purchases. Plus, you get the bonus of edible seed pods. Here's how to make radishes work for you long-term. Plant your initial crop as usual, but here's the key. Don't pull up every single radish. Let some of the healthiest plants stay in the ground and bolt to seed. Those tall flowering stems will eventually produce seed pods that you can harvest and eat like snap peas, or let them dry and drop seeds for next season's volunteers. Radishes work beautifully in containers, and a 12-inch deep pod is plenty for their shallow roots. In very hot weather, radishes will bolt immediately to seed, so focus on spring and fall plantings when temperatures are moderate for the best root development. Have you ever left a radish in the ground too long and found it woody and inedible? What if next time you let it flower and watched what happened instead of throwing it on the compost pile? Just remember that the flowering stems can get quite tall and might shade out smaller plants nearby, so position them thoughtfully in your garden layout. At number 9, we have turnips. And this is one that really surprises people because most gardeners think of turnips as just those white and purple root vegetables you harvest in fall. But here's what's fascinating about turnips. They're actually biennials, which means they'll give you roots the first year and then go to seed the second year, dropping seeds that create a whole new crop without any work from you. This is perfect for anyone who wants both nutritious roots and leafy greens without the constant expense of buying fresh vegetables. Turnip roots at the grocery store typically cost around $2 to $3 a pound, and those tender turnip greens can cost even more. If you're buying turnips regularly throughout the cool seasons, maybe twice a month for 6 months, you're looking at spending around $30 to $40 a year just on this one vegetable family. Here's where turnips become your garden workhorses. Self-seeding turnips can provide both roots and greens for multiple seasons, potentially saving you $20 to $30 annually. But the real bonus is having fresh, pesticide-free vegetables available whenever you need them. Plus, turnip greens are incredibly nutritious and often hard to find in stores. The secret is planning for the 2-year cycle. Plant your turnips in late summer for fall harvest. But here's the key. Don't harvest every single root. Leave some of the healthiest plants in the ground through winter. In spring, they'll send up tall, flowering stems that eventually produce seeds. Let those seeds drop naturally, and you'll have volunteers sprouting the following season. Turnips work well in deep containers, at least 12 inches, which makes them perfect for patio gardening or raised bed setups. In very cold climates below Zone 6, you might need to mulch heavily to help roots survive winter, or treat turnips as annuals and save seeds manually. Have you ever wondered what would happen if you left a turnip in the ground through winter instead of harvesting it? What if that experiment gave you a whole new crop the following year? Just be aware that the seed stalks can grow quite tall, sometimes 4 feet, so they might interfere with nearby plants or create wind resistance that could topple containers. Coming in at number 8, we have kale, and if you've been watching grocery store prices lately, you know why this one ranks so high on our list. This nutritional powerhouse has become incredibly popular, but those bags and bunches at the store can really hit your wallet hard. What most people don't realize is that kale is actually a biennial, which means it grows leaves the first year and goes to seed the second year, dropping seeds that can give you free kale for years to come. This is perfect for anyone who wants to eat healthy without breaking the budget on superfoods. A bunch of fresh kale at the grocery store typically costs $4 to $5, and those pre-washed bags can cost even more. If you're trying to include kale in your family's diet regularly, maybe buying it twice a month throughout the growing season, you could easily spend $60 to $80 a year on this one vegetable. Here's where kale becomes your nutritional and financial champion. Self-seeding kale can provide fresh leaves for months, then reseed itself for next year's crop. This could save you $40 to $60 annually, plus you'll have the freshest, most nutrient-dense kale possible right outside your door. There's no comparing the flavor and nutrition of freshly picked kale to what's been sitting in transport trucks and store coolers for weeks. The process works beautifully with kale's natural cycle. Plant your kale in late summer for fall and winter harvest. Don't harvest every plant completely. Leave some of the healthiest ones in the ground through winter. In spring, they'll send up tall, flowering stalks that eventually produce seeds. Let those seeds drop naturally, and you'll have volunteers the following season. Kale works wonderfully in containers. A deep 18-inch pot can support several plants and makes harvesting much easier on your back. In extremely cold climates below Zone 6, you might need to provide some protection for overwintering plants, but kale is surprisingly cold hardy. Have you noticed how expensive those trendy kale salads are at restaurants? What if you could walk outside and harvest enough fresh kale for a week's worth of smoothies and salads? Just remember that the seed stalks can grow quite tall, sometimes reaching 5 feet, so make sure they won't shade out your other plants. At number 7, we have fennel, and this is the one that's probably sitting in your spice rack right now. You know those little fennel seeds you use for Italian cooking or tea? That same plant can become your garden's most generous self-seeder, giving you edible bulbs, feathery leaves, and all the seeds you could ever want. Most gardeners don't realize that the entire fennel plant is not only edible, but incredibly valuable. This is where fennel becomes a real budget game changer. If you buy fresh fennel bulbs at the grocery store, you're looking at $4 to $6 each, and those feathery fronds that chefs charge extra for are often wilted or missing entirely. Fennel seeds at the spice store cost around $8 to $10 for a small jar. If you use fennel regularly in cooking, maybe buying a bulb monthly and replacing spice seeds annually, you could easily spend $70 to $80 a year on what one self-seeding plant can provide. Here's where the magic happens. Self-seeding fennel can give you fresh bulbs for roasting, delicate fronds for garnishing, and more seeds than you could use in a lifetime. This could save you $50 to $60 annually. Plus, you'll have the freshest possible fennel with maximum flavor and nutrition. There's simply no comparison between store-bought fennel that's traveled hundreds of miles and what you can harvest fresh from your own garden. Fennel is beautifully simple to work with. Plant it once, then let some plants go to their full height and bloom with those gorgeous yellow umbrella flowers. The seeds will drop naturally and you'll have volunteers appearing the next season. Fennel works well in deep containers, at least 18 inches, which makes it perfect for patio gardens or anyone who needs easier access without bending. In very hot climates, fennel may bolt quickly to seed, which actually works in your favor for seed production, though you might not get large bulbs. Have you ever let store-bought fennel seeds sit in your spice rack until they lost their potency? What if instead you had a plant dropping fresh seeds every fall? Just be aware that fennel can cross-pollinate with dill if planted nearby, potentially affecting the flavor of both plants' seeds. Number 6 brings us to carrots, and this one really opens people's eyes because most gardeners think carrots are strictly annual root vegetables. But here's the fascinating secret. Carrots are actually biennials, which means if you leave some in the ground through winter, they'll send up beautiful lacy flowers the second year and drop seeds that can give you carrots for decades to come. This is perfect for anyone who wants sweet, fresh carrots without the constant expense and effort of buying seed packets every year. Baby carrots at the grocery store cost around $3 to $4 a bag, and those aren't even real baby carrots. They're just regular carrots carved down and treated with chemicals to stay fresh. Fresh, full-size carrots typically run $2 to $3 a pound. If you're buying carrots regularly for your family, maybe twice a month throughout the year, you could easily spend $50 to $60 annually. Here's where carrots become your long-term garden investment. Self-seeding carrots can provide fresh roots for years once established, potentially saving you $30 to $40 each year. But the real treasure is having carrots with that incredible sweetness you can only get from harvesting them at peak freshness from your own soil. The process requires patience, but pays off beautifully. Plant your carrots as usual, but here's the crucial part. Don't harvest every single root. Leave some of your best carrots in the ground through winter. In spring, they'll send up tall, delicate flower stalks that look almost like Queen Anne's lace. Those flowers will eventually produce seeds that drop and create volunteers. Carrots work well in deep containers, at least 12 inches, and raised beds make harvesting much easier on your back and knees. In very cold climates below Zone 5, you'll need to mulch heavily to protect overwintering roots, or you can dig up roots in fall and replant them in spring. Have you ever wondered what would happen if you forgot to harvest a carrot and left it in the ground all winter? What if that experiment gave you a lifetime supply of carrots? Just remember that carrot flowers can attract beneficial insects, but those tall stems might need staking in windy areas to prevent them from falling over and damaging nearby plants. At number 5, we have beets, and this is where things get really exciting because beets give you double the value. Both nutritious roots and those incredible leafy greens that cost a fortune at fancy restaurants. Most people don't realize that beets are biennials, just like carrots, which means if you leave some roots in the ground through winter, they'll flower and seed the following year, giving you an endless supply of both roots and greens. This is perfect for anyone who wants maximum nutrition and savings from every square inch of garden space. Fresh beets at the grocery store typically cost $3 to $4 a pound for the roots, and those tender beet greens, when you can even find them, cost another $4 to $5 a bunch. If you're buying beets regularly throughout the growing season, maybe twice a month, plus occasional beet greens for salads, you could easily spend $80 to $100 a year on what one self-seeding patch can provide indefinitely. Here's where beets become your nutritional powerhouse and budget champion. Self-seeding beets can give you fresh roots for roasting, tender greens for salads, and enough seeds to share with neighbors. This could save you $60 to $70 annually, plus you'll have access to those beautiful, colorful varieties that grocery stores rarely carry. Golden beets, striped Kyoja, or deep red Detroit varieties. The process is wonderfully straightforward. Plant your beets as usual, harvest most for eating, but leave some of your healthiest roots in the ground through winter. In spring, they'll send up tall seed stalks with small, clustered flowers that eventually drop seeds for next year's crop. Beets work beautifully in containers. A deep 18-inch pot can support several plants and makes harvesting much gentler on your back and knees. In extremely cold climates below Zone 4, you'll want to mulch heavily or dig and store roots indoors for replanting in spring. Have you ever paid restaurant prices for those trendy beet and goat cheese salads? What if you could harvest both the beets and greens from your own container garden? Just keep in mind that beet seed stalks can grow quite tall, sometimes 4 feet, and they might cast shade on smaller plants nearby, so plan your garden layout accordingly. Number 4 brings us to parsley, and this is one that will absolutely transform your relationship with fresh herbs forever. Most people think of parsley as just that expensive little bunch you buy at the store that sits in your refrigerator until it turns into green mush. But here's what will change everything. Parsley is actually a biennial that will give you fresh leaves for almost 2 years, then drop enough seeds to supply your herb needs for the rest of your life. This is where the grocery store math really gets shocking. A bunch of fresh parsley typically costs $2 to $3, and if you're someone who cooks regularly and uses herbs, you might buy parsley every couple of weeks throughout the year. That adds up to $40 to $60 annually just for this one herb. But here's what's even more frustrating. Most of that expensive parsley goes bad before you can use it all, so you're essentially throwing money in the trash. Self-seeding parsley eliminates all of that waste and expense. One plant will give you fresh herbs for cooking, smoothies, and garnishing for nearly 2 full years, then drop seeds that create new plants without any effort from you. This could easily save you $50 to $70 each year, plus you'll always have the freshest possible parsley available the moment you need it for cooking. The secret is understanding parsley's 2-year cycle. Plant it once, harvest leaves regularly the first year, then let it overwinter. The second year, it will continue producing leaves early in the season. Then send up tall flower stalks with tiny white flowers that eventually produce seeds. Let those seeds drop naturally, and you'll have volunteers sprouting up for seasons to come. Parsley works beautifully in containers. A 12-inch deep pot is perfect, making it ideal for kitchen windowsills or patio herb gardens. In very cold climates below Zone 5, you may need to protect plants with mulch or bring containers indoors for winter. When was the last time you had to throw away expensive fresh parsley because it went bad before you could use it? What if instead you could step outside and cut exactly what you need, when you need it? Just remember that parsley flowers attract beneficial insects, but those tall seed heads might need support to prevent them from falling over in strong winds. At number 3, we have onions, and this is where the real money-saving magic begins because onions are something you use in almost every meal, yet most people never realize they can grow themselves and reseed naturally. This isn't just about saving a few dollars. This is about breaking free from one of your biggest ongoing grocery expenses while getting better tasting onions than anything you can buy in stores. Let me paint you a picture of what onions cost your household budget. A 3-pound bag of yellow onions typically runs $4 to $5 at the grocery store, and if you cook regularly, you probably go through one bag every 2 to 3 weeks. That means you're spending around $80 to $100 a year just on onions. But here's what really hurts. Those store-bought onions often sprout or rot before you can use them all, so you're literally throwing money in the trash. Self-seeding onions change everything about this equation. One planting can give you onions for storage, green onions for cooking, and enough seed to supply your onion needs for decades. This could save you $70 to $90 every single year. Plus, you'll have onions with that incredible flavor and keeping quality you can only get from your own garden. Here's the beautiful secret about onions. They're biennials that will grow bulbs the first year, then send up flower stalks the second year that produce seeds. Plant onion sets once, harvest most for eating and storage. but leave some of your best bulbs in the ground through winter. The following spring, they'll send up tall stalks with gorgeous globe-shaped flowers that eventually release seeds. Onions work wonderfully in raised beds or deep containers, at least 10 inches, making them perfect for anyone who needs easier access without constant bending. In very cold climates below Zone 3, you may need to dig and store bulbs indoors for replanting, but most areas can overwinter onions with light mulching. How often do you find yourself at the store buying onions because you ran out? What if instead you had a storage area full of your own onions that lasted through winter? Just be patient with the flower stalks. They can take several months to fully mature and release seeds, but those seeds will give you onions for years to come. Coming in at number 2, we have garlic, and if you've been paying attention to grocery store prices lately, you know exactly why this ranks so high on our list. Garlic has become absolutely shocking in price, sometimes $8 to $10 a pound for organic bulbs, and even regular garlic can cost $5 to $6 a pound. What most people don't realize is that garlic is incredibly easy to grow and will multiply itself year after year, giving you a lifetime supply from one initial planting. Let me break down what garlic is costing your household budget. If you use garlic regularly in cooking, and who doesn't, you probably buy a few bulbs every month at around 50 cents to $1 each. That adds up to $15 to $20 a year just for basics. Garlic. But if you prefer organic garlic or you use a lot in your cooking and preserving, you could easily spend $40 to $60 annually on something that costs pennies to grow yourself. Self-seeding garlic, or more accurately, garlic that multiplies itself, can eliminate this expense forever. One planting of garlic cloves will give you bulbs for eating, bulbs for replanting, and often small bulbils from the flower heads that create even more plants. This could save you $50 to $80 every year. Plus, you'll have access to varieties you can't even find in stores. Hardneck varieties with those wonderful curly scapes, or softneck varieties perfect for braiding and long storage. Here's how garlic works its magic. Plant individual cloves in fall, about 6 inches apart and 2 inches deep. Each clove grows into a full bulb with multiple cloves. Harvest most for eating and storage, but save your best bulbs for replanting. Many varieties also produce flower heads with tiny bulbils that you can plant for additional stock. Garlic works beautifully in raised beds or deep containers, at least 8 inches, making it perfect for anyone who needs easier access without heavy digging. In very warm climates below Zone 7, you'll need to choose softneck varieties that don't require cold winter periods. How much have you spent on garlic in the past year? What if instead you had braids of your own garlic hanging in your pantry? Just remember to cure harvested garlic properly in a warm, dry, well-ventilated area before storage to prevent rot and ensure maximum keeping quality. And here we are at number 1, the ultimate self-perpetuating vegetable that most gardeners have never even heard of, Jerusalem artichokes, also called sunchokes. This isn't just self-seeding. This is a vegetable that literally plants itself underground and can feed your entire family indefinitely from one initial purchase. Most people walk right past these knobby little tubers at the grocery store without realizing they're looking at the most valuable long-term food investment they could ever make. Here's where the numbers become absolutely mind-blowing. Jerusalem artichokes at the grocery store cost $6 to $8 a pound, when you can even find them. Most stores don't carry them because they're considered a specialty item. But here's what will shock you. Each tuber you plant will multiply into 10 to 15 new tubers by the end of the growing season. Plant just 1 pound, and within 2 years, you could have 50 to 100 pounds of food year after year without ever replanting anything. Let's talk about what this means for your food budget and security. If you bought 50 pounds of Jerusalem artichokes at store prices, you'd spend $300 to $400. But plant just 1 pound once, and you'll have that much food production every single year for the rest of your life. Over 10 years, you're looking at saving thousands of dollars while having a reliable source of nutritious, storable food that tastes like a cross between a potato and a water chestnut. The magic happens underground where you can't even see it. Plant the tubers in spring, harvest what you need in fall, and leave some in the ground. Those remaining tubers will multiply and spread, creating an ever-expanding food forest right beneath your feet. They work perfectly in raised beds or large containers, at least 18 inches deep, making them ideal for anyone with mobility concerns. In very cold climates below Zone 3, mulch heavily, but these are incredibly hardy plants that laugh at winter weather. Have you ever wished you could plant something once and never worry about food security again? What if that something was growing underground right now, multiplying quietly while you sleep? Just be aware that Jerusalem artichokes can spread aggressively. So many gardeners prefer growing them in contained areas or large pots to control their enthusiasm. There you have it. We've just walked through 20 incredible self-seeding vegetables that can transform your garden from an annual expense into a lifetime investment. From corn salad at number 20 all the way up to those amazing Jerusalem artichokes at number 1, you now know the secrets that can make you almost completely independent from the garden center's yearly sales cycle. But before you rush out and plant everything at once, let me share some bonus tips that will make your self-seeding garden truly successful. First, create a dedicated volunteer zone or use separate containers for your self-seeders so they don't invade areas where grandchildren play or pets roam freely. Label your plantings so you can recognize volunteers when they appear. It's easy to mistake a valuable volunteer for a weed and pull it up by accident. Each spring, take a few minutes to lightly thin your seedlings. Volunteers are free, but they still need space to grow properly. Watch for overcrowding and disease, because even self-perpetuating plants need minimal monitoring to stay healthy. And always keep safety in mind. Some plants like fennel can grow quite tall and might interfere with walkways, while others like mustard greens can be surprisingly spicy for curious grandchildren. Here's something I want you to try. Keep a simple notebook tracking how much you would have spent on seeds, seedlings, and fresh vegetables. Then note how much you didn't spend because your garden replanted itself. Watch those savings build month by month. You'll be amazed at the numbers. You're not dependent on anyone else's schedule anymore. You're working with nature instead of being controlled by it. You're reducing costs, reducing physical strain, protecting your loved ones, and building a legacy garden that honors your time, your budget, and your space. So here's my challenge to you. Pick just one plant from our countdown to try this coming season. Mark its spot. Track what happens and prepare to be amazed. And make sure you subscribe because next week we're diving deep into the best self-seeding herbs for small containers and balcony gardens. Here's to a garden that gives and reseeds. Less work, less cost, more reward. You've got this and your garden's got you.